This evening is celebrating its 20th annual debating tournament. For the 19th year running, this final is taking place at the French National Assembly. And once again, I'm sure you'll agree, we are doing it in style. For the 6th year in succession, we are here in this most extraordinary, magnificent cradle of democracy, the Hôtel de la Cé. Our presence here is due to the current resident of this sumptuous building, to a man who responded immediately and positively to our request for a venue for the final. To a man who is representative of the openness and transparency of this forum for all citizens that is l'Assemblée Nationale. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the French Debating Association and of all of you present here this evening, I would like to thank, in the warmest of fashions, the President of the French National Assembly, Mr. Claude Barthelone. President Barthelone is currently on a trip to Mali, only returning tomorrow morning, and deeply regrets not being able to be with us this evening. Silence is the attribute of fools, tells us Cicero. And the only silence that we welcome here this evening is that of the mobile phone variety. We certainly neither welcome nor expect silence from the 10 orators gathered on either side of me this evening to do a rhetorical battle. The two teams present this evening have each won through 3 qualifying rounds to get to this final, and so the winner this evening will truly be the French debating champion of 2013. We are absolutely delighted to welcome, on my right and your left, the government side this evening, which is making its first ever appearance in the FDA Final. Fresh from their semi-final victory over Super Toulouse in a wonderful debate held at the splendid residence of the British Ambassador, please welcome the proposition teams from HEC. Individually, they will be led by our Prime Minister for this evening, Mr. Guillaume Fehrenbach. The second speaker, Mr. Jonas Veillard. The third speaker, Mr. Michele Panzeri. And the final speaker and whip this evening, Ms. Selma Bell. In our other semi-final, former winners École Normale Supérieure came up against a team from another former winner of our trophy, and who are this evening's opposition, the École Polytechnique. The leader of that team, we like to refer to him in a way as, I suppose from a parliamentary point of view, it's not quite precise, but in the French Debating Association, we call him the Shadow Prime Minister, Mr. Jean Pouget-Lavallée. The second speaker will be Mr. Christophe Jean-Yves Stéphane. And the final speaker and whip on the opposition, Mr. Hugo Zilberberg. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please spare a thought for the people who will have the particularly difficult decision of choosing a winning team and best speaker this evening, the very distinguished members of the jury. We have, in the past, had star-studded juries, but for the 20th anniversary, we have the most star-studdedest jury ever to grace an FDA Final. Each of them comes from a different field of competence, be it in the domain of politics, diplomacy, administration, the arts, media, or indeed academia. But each is distinguished by his excellence in that field. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, the two co-presidents of the jury. Last year, after providing us once again for the third year with a master class in public speaking, I immediately asked this man if he would do us the honor of returning in 2013. And in his own inimitable fashion, he replied, "Jamais 304 lettres." Well, he has indeed honored that promise this evening, where he is back with us for the 4th year running, which makes him the most capped jury chairman ever, the Irish ambassador to France, His Excellency Paul Kavanagh. We are particularly honored this evening and delighted to have as co-president a man who last year, despite being still in his first month of his appointment here in Paris, immediately replied to our invitation to join our jury then. He enjoyed it so much, I believe, that he has accepted to come back also this year for the second time, in what I feel, and I hope, will also be a record-breaking run. However, I'm not sure if I'm giving away any secrets if I tell you that his involvement with the French Debating Association indeed goes back to the last century. At that time, he was Counselor for European Economic and Financial Affairs at the British Embassy here in Paris, and was instrumental in persuading the then Ambassador, Sir Michael Jay, to support our association and be the first ambassador to appear on one of our final juries. But the man I speak of this evening was not content to grace us with his presence. He went so far as to invite the French Debating Association, 200 of us, to his residence for one of our 2 semi-finals. For all these reasons, the FDA is indebted deeply to the British Ambassador here in Paris, His Excellency Sir Peter Ricketts. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a real honor and a privilege, a sincere privilege, to introduce our next jury member. He is the first immortal, as the Académie Française's 40 members are known, to be born in Britain, and whose first language is English, since the foundation of the Academy in 1635 by Cardinal Richelieu. Former colleagues of his include Voltaire, Victor Hugo, Jacques Cousteau, Claude Lévi-Strauss. Present members include the former President Valéry Giscard d'Estaing and the former President of the European Parliament, Simone Veil. This man is a much admired poet in both the French and English languages, as well as being Professor at the Collège de France, France's most prestigious academic institution. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a particularly warm welcome to Professor Michael Edwards. But you are certainly aware that just behind me stands the doors which open up to the Palais Bourbon and to the hemicycle of the chamber where decisions are taken daily which have a direct effect on how this country is going. The very well-oiled machine which allows this legislative process to take place has an extremely long and glorious history, and we are particularly happy to welcome this evening its Director General. The Director General has indeed graced our jury in previous years, but this year we are particularly grateful to him for stepping in at the last moment to replace the Secretary General, Madame Ricketts, who was indeed called away with President Macron to Mali. Now that you've seen him, or will see him in a moment this evening, you'll be able to recognize him on your TV, often sitting beside President Macron in the chamber. Le Directeur Général des Services Législatifs à l'Assemblée nationale, Mr. Christophe Pallez. Judge's involvement with the French Debating Association goes back to the mid-1990s. But he won't mind me saying he was a student at the time, so that's perfectly acceptable. And he even looks still like a student to some extent, I have to say, the gift of eternal youth. In fact, he was a member of one of the winning teams, of the winning team indeed, of our third ever tournament, 1995-1996 season. He is currently the Directeur de Clientèle at the Caisse des Dépôts, but this evening he is with us in his quality as a member of the victorious 1996 ENA debating team, Mr. Jérôme Fehrenbach. Ladies and gentlemen, please also give a special welcome to our next judge, who represents the journalistic and associative dimension on our jury. This man also happens to be a graduate of one of the finest universities in Ireland, if not the world, Trinity College, Dublin. For indeed, that was where we met several years ago. Our paths have crisscrossed in various ways, in various fashions since, and I'm delighted to say that they continue to crisscross once again here this evening. The editor-in-chief of the highly respected OECD Observer magazine, Mr. Rory Clarke. Our final jury member, ladies and gentlemen, has a special place in the history of the FDA. He had a special place in the foundation of the FDA, and he has always had a special place in the heart of the FDA. For indeed, all those long years ago, as a student at the NSA, he co-founded the association and was its first ever Secretary General. He has done us the honor of returning to our final practically every year since. And now we can do him the honor of welcoming him on our special anniversary jury, Mr. Emmanuel Lemoine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have, as you see, a very distinguished jury this evening, but we are also very honored to welcome another very distinguished guest who has joined us to enjoy the debate. She is visiting Paris at the moment in her role as Irish Minister of State for the Department of Health and Department of Justice, Equality and Defence, where she has responsibility for disability, equality, mental health and older people. She has taken some time out from her very busy schedule to spend the evening with us, and we would like to extend a very warm welcome and thank her for her interest in our debate, Minister Kathleen Lynch, TD. In these days of globalization, the French Debating Association has had to adapt itself to new requirements and demands. And thus we have opened up branches dealing with every imaginable aspect of debating. But I would like to take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to say a very special thanks to two very special ladies, our co-Secretaries General. Both of these ladies have been Secretary General in their own individual right over the last 2 years, but they did such a great job that they and we decided to split the work this year. After handling the whole show last year on our own, the following lady was more than happy and more than pleased to share the burden this year. It is with great pleasure that I would now publicly like to thank her for her work for the French Debating Association over the years and to make a special presentation to her. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to approach our Co-Secretary General, Ms. Céline Ricketts. But ladies and gentlemen, this is now a special FDA tradition also that our Secretary General should double up on final night as our technical advisor. We have increased the numbers of our participating institutions to 20 this year. And so the position of Secretary General and the work which goes with it has increased proportionately. To fulfill that role now not only requires huge amounts of savoir and of savoir-faire, but also means having to come into daily contact for a number of months with me. So the position needs endurance skills and a huge pain threshold as well, I'm sure you can understand. Such a task could only be carried out by a truly gifted and organised person. And we, at the French Debating Association, count ourselves extremely lucky to have someone who fits that bill as regards all of these qualities, as well as being a smiling, calming influence in moments of madness. She's the woman who has been at the centre of the organisation and the timing of our whole tournament, and of tonight's final, indeed. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, it is only fitting that she be in charge of time itself. Our Co-Secretary General, Ms. Cécile Oliver-Leblond. It is indeed fitting that this feast of eloquence should take place in France's cradle of oratory, the Assemblée Nationale. But that is even more the case given that the spectacle of rhetoric we're about to see is based on the rules and procedures of the Assemblée's sister house in the United Kingdom, the House of Commons. So for those of you unfamiliar, I don't think there are very many, but those of you unfamiliar with our format, let me just very briefly run through the main features of what has now become known as Paris 5 debating style. 5 speakers from the government, 5 speakers from the opposition speak consecutively for a total of 6 minutes each. Speakers may be interrupted in 2 ways: by points of information, a question made to a speaker by a member of the opposing team. The speaker may or may not accept the point, but is obliged, members of the jury, to accept at least one and expected to accept 2 during his or her speech. If a speaker rejects a point of information, he or she must make it clear to the speaker verbally that that point of information is being rejected, or by a very clear gesture. The second interruption is also possible, and that is points of order. Points of order are made to me, the chairman. I must accept the point of order. A point of order concerns the running or the procedure of the debate. A point of order is not, unlike a point of information, included in the timing. The timing, ladies and gentlemen, 6 minutes. The first minute and the last minute are what we consider in our FDA style protected time. So after 1 minute, you will hear the following sound. That means that the first minute has elapsed and speakers can now be interrupted by points of information. After 5 minutes, you will hear the following sound. This means, it's very similar to the first one, This means that speakers have 1 minute to conclude. We have about 15 seconds tolerance on that one last minute. But 1 minute to conclude and may no longer be interrupted by points of information during that last protected minute. At 6 minutes, we hear a different sound. This means, of course, that speakers have reached the end of their allotted time and are expected to reach a conclusion as rapidly as possible. After the 10 speeches, official speeches, I will ask the jury to retire and to deliberate. The jury looking for four main criteria: the content, obviously, the presentation of the speech, how a speaker deals precisely how it puts it across, the teamwork, which includes also the interruptions or points of information, and finally, what we consider to be the overall impression of what we refer to now famously in the FDA as the je ne sais quoi. I underline, members of the jury, that this is not an exercise of the standard of English. You will hear wonderful English this evening, without any doubt. But once again, the standard of English is not a criterion you take into account. When the jury is making its decision, the motion will be thrown up to you, the members of the House. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there will be 2 microphones circulating. I will make a few announcements before, and a few other members of the House would like to make announcements. But after that, the motion will be given over to you, and you can have your opportunity to speak. All this talk is very well. But the British philosopher, John Wisdom, once said, words are also actions. Actions are kind of words. You have come for action, ladies and gentlemen. So we will open the arena to our oratorical gladiators this evening. Let us move to the motion at hand. This House still believes in liberty, equality, and fraternity.